Hello everyone, it's your pal D Square here, live on YouTube on a Friday night. As I mentioned in other videos, exciting time to be a nerd. Endgame happened a couple weeks ago. Spider-Man Far From Home trailer dropped. We learned about the multiverse, which is maybe another subject for another time in video. I'm excited yet cautiously optimistic about that. Sorry that this is so late. I know I usually do some Game of Thrones talk a couple of days after the issue airs. Just had some projects this week. I have a full-time job, a trailer that I'm trying to fix, so unfortunately wasn't able to get this out sooner. But here we are on a Friday night. Had a tough week of work, and now I get to relax, play some games, spend some time with the wife and kids. So, all good stuff. All right, well, I'm hoping that some people join me tonight. But if not, as always, this is going to be on my D-Square channel. Of course, you can also catch me at D-Square72. I didn't mention that in the Avengers Endgame review video. So that's at D-Square72 on Twitter. And would definitely love to get a follow. I'll be more than happy to follow back. Talk with you about various nerdy things. Whatever you want to do. Excuse me. Okay, just checking my mic there. Make sure that we're all good. Okay, so I'm probably not even going to spend a lot of time on my first subject, which is Game of Thrones. The 4th episode of the last season, which is season number 8. I definitely have some thoughts on it, but, unless we have some interaction, probably not going to spend a whole lot of time on it, because my next subject is probably where my passion is going to be this week, but, nonetheless, here it goes. So this episode was disappointing. Now, it wasn't disappointing because the writing was low quality or the show itself was low quality or not entertaining. I'm actually very disappointed in the characters. The first really big problem I have is that Jon Snow, or Aegon Targaryen, however you want to refer to him right now, as well as Daenerys Stormborn, they know nothing about military strategy. I mean, they're just making really stupid decisions. I mean, the episode starts off with this emotional funeral. Jon gives a great speech. I was almost thinking like, okay, great. This is, he's really going to start to shine here. So he does have a good speech. They're partying it up in Winterfell, and why not after such a dark and terrible battle? Absolutely, cut loose. Have fun with that. But now we're back to the Game of Thrones immediately. We are back. Obviously, Daenerys knows about Jon, and although he doesn't want the throne, he's still a threat. And that's really reinforced by a scene that we'll talk about here in a moment. Because before we get there, and again, this is the more Game of Thrones aspect, is Daenerys obviously comes to the understanding that she's not trusted up here in the north. She needs to have some allies. So she legitimizes Gendry Baratheon, makes him Lord Baratheon of Storm's End. Everyone's cheering for that. I like it. I think it's a good move politically. But after that, she's seeing all this revelry that's happening around Jon, specifically from Tormund, who's mentioning the fact that I'm sorry about that. The fact that all these heroic things that he's done, and he even died for his cause and came back to life and started fighting again. He said, there's only two kind of people that do that, and that's a crazy person and a king. Daenerys catches all of this, and it certainly doesn't please her. She talks with Jon and begs and pleads him to keep the secret with him, because he tells her, I don't want the throne, but she says, it doesn't matter if you want it or not. They're going to want you to have it if you tell everybody what your true lineage is, and that you actually have, excuse me, the best claim to the throne. You tell everybody that, and even though you don't want it, you're going to have people that are going to really be pushing you toward that. So he promises not to say anything, which is cool, which is understandable. I get it. But he argues he does have to tell his family. And Dany tells her, don't. Don't do that, Jon. He does. He tells Sansa and he tells Arya. Sansa, goes straight to Tyrion. So that secret's going to get out. That's not really dealt with in this issue or episode, but that secret's going to get out. So let's get to the boneheaded decisions, though, that I talked about. So the first bonehead decision is that Daenerys is basically like, okay, let's gather our forces, let's go, we have to go kill Cersei. Sansa brings up the point, wisely so, that, hey, why don't we chill out, let the soldiers recuperate, and then go. Daenerys obviously doesn't, excuse me, Alright, I apologize for that. I just had to go get me some water and cough a little bit, and now I'm back. So anyways, as to the stupid decisions that was made during this show, this episode, is the soldier thing. Daenerys wants to send them, Sansa wants them to rest. Jon overrides Sansa and says, nope, we've agreed to fight. We've agreed to support Daenerys, and so she's going to go down and fight Cersei. We're going to do that. So, stupid decision number one. Actually, a joint decision almost by Daenerys and Jon Snow. Then as we go through this episode, they're starting to go down to Winterfell, down to King's Landing, which the Hound kind of leaves. He has a funny scene where, this chick's trying to, get with him, and he's not having it, and he's still kind of grumpy because, he's got this goal of killing his brother, which he hasn't done yet. Now that Gendry is now Lord Baratheon, he goes to tell Arya and wants to marry her. But she's like, no, that's not me. That's not me, no. So she rejects him. And then she also leaves Winterfell and kind of connects with the Hound. And so the Hound and Arya are going down to King's Landing to do their business, which is cool. I like that pairing. I like that fact that they're like, hey, yeah, I'm not going to stay in Winterfell. I'm not going to be a big part. I'm not going to be the part of this big army. I'm going to go down and take care of what I need to take care of. So that's cool. So we get to the second biggest stupid decision of this episode, and that is that as everyone's making their way down to King's Landing, Daenerys has got her fleet, which is like 10 ships, if that, 10 little small ships. 2 dragons are in the air. She's got no scout ships, no scouts whatsoever, okay? And you already know that part of Cersei's big advantage is the fact that she has a fleet of ships supplied to her by her new lover, Euron Greyjoy. And wouldn't you know it, they, smartly so, assumed that, hey, you know what? She might try to return to Dragonstone at some point. So, as her and her little fleet and the 2 dragons are headed toward Dragonstone, they almost get there. And oh, look at that. One of the dragons is now dead because a scorpion, which is that big giant crossbow that, kills dragons, one of those is on the bow of every one of Euron Greyjoy's ships. They have now ambushed Daenerys and his forces. As soon as they kill one of the dragons, they turn those same scorpions onto boats. So not only do they kill dragons, they also do massive damage to the boats. Long story short, all the important characters survive, but Missandei she's nowhere to be seen. So how stupid is Daenerys, or whoever's making these military decisions? Euron Greyjoy has this huge fleet out there, and you really probably should stay off the water. Yet they don't. And if you're going to go on the water, okay, Euron Greyjoy has a way bigger fleet than I have, way powerful. The ships are bigger, so why don't I use that to my advantage and have a scout ship so I know where they're at? And then, I have these dragons. Why don't I have them go real high so they can see everything around us? But yet they don't do any of that. They get on these ships like no one's going to attack them or anything like that. Like they're not in open war. And because of it, we lose a dragon. We lose a lot of ships. It turns out that Missandei was captured by Euron. And we know that because Daenerys eventually does make it to King's Landing with a small number of her troops. So obviously Jon also left Winterfell, but he didn't go by boat. So thankfully he's not there. He was maybe smart enough to say, hey, I'm not going by sea. I'm not taking my forces by sea. Maybe the only reason they didn't do that is because they didn't have enough boats. I don't know. But thankfully all the Northmen and everyone that Jon commands went the land route. So they're not there yet. But Daenerys gets there. Now, King's Landing, on all the battlements, has scorpions. I'm sorry, I keep hitting this mic, but all scorpions trained on Drogon, so he's not going to be able to get anywhere near the city. There's a little negotiation by Qyburn and Tyrion. Cersei and her group are standing like on the main battlement above the gate. And they have Missandei. Tyrion tries to talk to Cersei. He alludes to her child, which may cause some problem with Euron because she's trying to pass off the fact that she's pregnant. Oh, it's yours, Euron. So this may be the clue that tips him off that, it's not yours, and that may be a problem. But anywho, so the peace talks are, of course, unsuccessful. In fact, it ends with Cersei commanding the Mountain to kill and behead Missandei, which she does. And obviously Daenerys sees this. Grey Worm sees this as an upset. Maybe this is going to give him some cool now berserker mode now that he's back to, the one thing that made me fearful is now dead. So, maybe we'll see some cool fighting from him now that, he'll should have reckless abandon. But just really, really dumb decisions by the 2 biggest, heroes of this series. So at this point, I really think Sansa, I think Sansa's going to be on the Iron Throne. Oh, by the way, and another dumb decision, but it wasn't by Daenerys or Jon Snow. It was actually by Brienne, which is surprising. So basically, as a part of the celebration, her Jamie, Tyrion, they're all playing that drinking game where you ask a question, and if you get it right, you drink, whatever. So they do that. They get drunk, and her and Jamie end up hooking up, okay? She rejects Tormund and ends up hooking up with Jamie. And then, the next day, he leaves. No, I'm not staying here. I'm not a good person. I've done all this horrible stuff for Cersei, so no. And so she immediately gets dumped after rejecting Tormund, who has now decided to go back up north with Ghost, by the way. Jon did want him to take Ghost. Which, I've listened to podcasts, and that's angering a lot of people. There's a lot of love for that CGI Ghost direwolf. I don't quite get it. I mean, I get it, but I don't quite get it. So anyway, that was actually kind of longer than I wanted to even go on, with the Game of Thrones stuff. But so there we are. Enjoyed the episode, but it's like, wow, the good guys are really stupid, and they just won this awesome battle. And I felt like everybody was dead, but it even turns out I think they still have half of the people. So, I mean, a really awesome victory for them, and they're just going to follow it up by getting owned like this. It's just, it's stupid decisions by stupid characters. All right. Well, the last thing that we're going to talk about is, so there is a controversial X-Men death, and I'll give you some context. So I shared a story on my Twitter. Again, that's going to be at @DSquare72. I shared a story on my Twitter, a writer that basically says this. The writer of this X-Men comic book, and this is Uncanny X-Men number 17. I'll actually have my review and story breakdown of that uploaded shortly. But in that episode, or issue rather, Wolfsbane is attacked by humans for being a mutant, and it is done so she quit the X-Men. She's just trying to live a normal life, so she's in human form, sitting on a park bench. It's like these college-age kids come up to her. One of them starts to kind of talk to her, flirt with her. He gets pushy. She's trying to reject him. He gets pushy. She kind of gets angry, kind of yells like, leave me alone. And when she does that, you can kind of see behind me here, she's got like this wolf mutant form. And so her face kind of starts to anamorph a little bit. And obviously the guys that were hitting on her, or the guy that was hitting on her, notices this, concludes that she's a mutant. His friends start to make fun of him for flirting with a mutant. Rain is apologizing, just wants to get out of there, but the fact that he's being made fun of now angers this dude even more, to the fact where he pushes Rain down. She instinctively goes to her, wolf mutant form that you see there behind me, slashes at the guy's face, cuts his face, I think even takes one of his ear off. She then reverts back to a human because she's like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do it, please forgive me. These four guys, there's like four dudes, basically they proceed to beat her to death. Now, so going back to the article that I shared on my Twitter, it is basically the writer stating that the writer of X-Men, Uncanny X-Men number 17, is trying to equate this to like a transgender situation, being inclusive to transgenders. And the writer's basically saying that no, you can't use the mutant cause as a metaphor for transsexual issues. Because it is used as a metaphor for race and things of that matter. I think that this writer and anyone else that is, looking at this moment and saying, oh, they're trying to, kowtow to transsexuals, but no, we're not fooling for that. This is an inclusion. We want actual transsexual heroes. This is the mark that you're missing, okay? It is true that when I read this scene, I did think of that. I did think and kind of think, that's how that must be like. That is what I thought. But I in no way, shape thought that this was this writer saying, oh, look, the X-Men are inclusive to transsexuals. There's gay characters, obviously. The race is a big thing. I don't think they were trying to do that. Now, it makes us kind of sympathize. But the point you're missing here, and it's because I can't tell you what and who this writer is and or what they read, but to me it kind of sounds like someone that doesn't actually know this character. So Rainn Wilson, otherwise known as Wolfsbane, is an Irish woman, Roman Catholic, so a Christian, Roman Catholic Christian. Her father actually was a priest and really treated her badly. He subscribed to that whole you're a mutant so you're cursed by God thing. So not even to glorify Roman Catholicism or Christianity here, but that is her background. And for those of you that don't know, Christianity, talks a lot about turning the other cheek and sacrificing yourself for the good of others. So we saw a Roman Catholic character who just wanted to live a normal life choose to basically sacrifice herself and die. And that in itself, the fact that Rainn chose, because again, she could have transformed into Wolfsbane and killed all three of these guys with the drop of a dime. She could have done that. But she willingly chose to stay in her human form and die. And that to me is the epitome of Charles Xavier's dream. And so anyone that is claiming that this is somehow this writer's way of trying to sympathize with the transgender movement or any other movement for that matter, you're just missing the mark. And I've explained this in another video where I talked about Brie Larson and this whole the social justice warrior people. Again, I'm all for peace and love and whatever makes you happy. So if you want to be a social justice warrior, as long as you're not hurting somebody, great. But I feel this is just another attack of an ally, no less. Because comic book stories and writers are always pretty much progressive. So, we're pretty inclusive people. I've explained this before. We're all just different types of freaks and, nerds. And in one, short time ago, when I was a kid, teenager, that wasn't exactly something that was cool and popular. But here we are. So I just wanted to make a short point about this, that, to that writer, again, I shared the story on my Twitter. Go check it out. Read it for yourself and make your own decisions. But I do want to say, even though reading it, I did think of the transsexual situation here. That's not, I didn't take this as, oh, look, X-Men is now inclusive for transsexuals. I didn't take it as way. I really took it as, look at this character who in their last act was basically the embodiment of everything that her religion would ever want from her and the embodiment of Charles Xavier's dream. And that's what should be taken away from this, not anything else. All right. We are all done here tonight, guys. Thank you so much. I'll see you on my next video. Have a great night, everyone, and I'll see you soon.